Good afternoon and welcome back. You're watching World News and I'm your host, Klaudia Czerwińska. 133 cardinals begin voting to choose the 267th Pope of the Catholic Church. Much like the pontificate of Pope Francis before it, the conclave is expected to feature unprecedented moments as the cardinals discuss who will succeed the late pontiff, often known for his progressive and unorthodox approach. Cardinals have already entered the Sistine Chapel and will swear an oath of secrecy on the gospel, as you can see in our live feed in front of you. Additionally, cell phones service within the territory of the Vatican will be turned off to prevent anyone from the outside contacting the participants. When the last of the electors has taken the oath, a process of discussions and mediations will begin. If the vote doesn't yield a two-third majority needed to elect the new pope, the cardinals will go back to their quarters in Casa Santa Marta for dinner. It is there and then, on the sidelines on the conclave, that important conversations among the cardinals take place and consensus begins to form around certain names. Although there is no way of knowing whether this will be a long or short conclave, cardinals are aware that prolonging the proceedings could be seen as a sign of rifts and disagreements between the highest-ranking officials of the Catholic Church. After a bumpy vote in the German Bundestag on Tuesday, Germany's new Chancellor Friedrich Merz set off on his first trip abroad, which will take him to both France and Poland.
The new Chancellor from the Conservative Christian Democratic Union, CDU, visited Paris first, meeting with French President Emmanuel Macron. Chancellor Merz is then expected to touch down in Warsaw and meet with his counterpart, Prime Minister Donald Tusk. In Paris, both Merz and Macron pledged further cooperation between the two nations.
We will only be able to meet these challenges if France and Germany stand even closer together than in the past, but also find compromises and drive progress forward together, along with our European friends and neighbors. That is why Emmanuel Macron and I have agreed on a Franco-German reboot for Europe. We will invigorate the Franco-German friendship with new energy, and we will deepen our cooperation at all levels further. We will also develop and further advance new formats, such as the E3 process and the Weimar Triangle. We will work very closely and trustingly together here as well. This applies especially to the area of security and defense. We will take joint measures to further expand Europe's security and defense capabilities and to further strengthen the European pillar within NATO.
Deterring Russia should not be beyond our capacities, said Radosław Sikorski, Poland's Minister of Foreign Affairs, adding that EU member states on a peacetime footing have a joint military budget that's 2.5 times Russia's on a war footing. These comments, made at the Warsaw Security Forum, come following increased efforts from the White House to play a lesser part in the security situation of Europe.
Since President Trump's first assuming power, non-US allies have doubled their military spending, but of course from a low base. But we are at a point at which just EU members on a peacetime footing have a joint military budget that is 2.5 times Russia's on a war footing. So deterring Russia should not be beyond our capacity, with some American assistance. The nuclear deterrence, intelligence, targeting information, and so on. So it is a question of how we organize ourselves for that task.
Defense 24 Days, the largest conference in Central and Eastern Europe dedicated to security and defense, is underway in Warsaw. Among the speakers on the second day of the conference was Tomasz Siemoniak, Polish Interior Minister. Our reporter Don Arleth is at the conference and has more.
Day 2 of the Defense 24 Days here in Warsaw, one of the largest expositions and security conferences in our region in Central and Eastern Europe. Well, we're in day 2, and the Polish Interior Minister, Tomasz Siemoniak, made comments here at the Expo and Forum. Of course, the Minister of the Interior praised the fact that Friedrich Merz is arriving in Poland this evening to meet with Prime Minister Donald Tusk. This will be his second stop after going to Paris earlier today. Now, the first item on the meeting today between the new German Chancellor and the Polish Prime Minister will be the border checks that are taking place on German territory on the common border between Poland and Germany. Of course, economic relations, relations with the European Union, securing the border, the eastern flanks border, which Poland has with Belarus, and support for Ukraine will be the top of priorities for these discussions between the new German Chancellor and Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk. Reporting from the Defense 24 Days here in Warsaw, Don Arleth, TVP World.
According to Polish Interior Minister Tomasz Siemoniak, the ability to finance various projects for the protection of the population through European funds is revolutionary. Siemoniak highlighted that it is particularly important that local governments can access the money also with respect to building shelters in Poland.
We want to let local governments know it is not a given that the state will build all this for you in a short time. This is also your responsibility. Your residents expect security from the local government. So maybe instead of a swimming pool, it is better to have a shelter in a certain place. That is the choice of the local government, and the Security and Defence Fund is an excellent tool for that.
Presidential candidate Karol Nawrocki, who is supported by the Law and Justice Party, has allayed claims that he took advantage of an elderly man and took over his apartment. In response to media uproar, Nawrocki gave away the apartment and said it will serve as a place for the elderly. Over to Piotr Miszczuk.
I acted within law and with pure intentions, said presidential candidate Karol Nawrocki, who is embroiled in a highly publicized scandal. At the recent presidential debate, he said that he has only one apartment, but it turns out that he has two. The other one he got in exchange for care for an elderly man called Jerzy, but the man has found himself at a state care home in the northern Polish city of Gdańsk. A political storm has ensued, but it seems that Mr. Nawrocki has found a way to weather this situation.
That's why I made a decision yesterday, together with my wife Marta, to donate this apartment to one of the charitable organizations which will continue to carry out this mission that I carried out for Mr. Jerzy. So this apartment in the next years, hopefully the next decades, will serve the elderly, people who need help, people who are excluded.
Nawrocki also promised to keep his side of the agreement and take care of the man, but the political consequences are immense. Fellow candidate, far-right Sławomir Mencen, who is polling in third, urged Nawrocki, who is polling in second, to withdraw his candidature, but they are both fighting for a spot, probably next to Rafał Trzaskowski, mayor of Warsaw, who is supported by the largest grouping in the ruling coalition. But whether this scandal will ruin Nawrocki's chances to take a seat in the palace behind me, we'll see in some 2 weeks. For TVP World from Warsaw, I'm Piotr Miszczuk.
As Russian President Vladimir Putin prepares for the Victory Day military parade on May 9th, all eyes are on his guest of honor, Chinese President Xi Jinping. Xi is set to arrive in Moscow later today for a 4-day state visit where he will deepen ties with Putin and participate in commemorations marking 80 years since the Allied victory over Nazi Germany in World War II. Xi's attendance is perceived as a strong display of unity between the two leaders at a time when U.S. diplomacy under President Donald Trump has shifted global alliances. In a pre-trip article published in Russian state media, Xi emphasized the need for the two countries to oppose hegemonism and safeguard their eternal friendship forged during World War II. Other foreign leaders, including Brazilian President Lula da Silva and Vietnamese President Tho Lam, will also join the festivities. Xi's delegation will send honor guards from the China's People Liberation Army to march in the parade, which takes place amidst the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. And so this would be all the latest news for now. Thank you so much for joining, but please do stay tuned. We're back in just a moment with more news and features.